What is going on, guys? Craig 1287 here, bringing you part 2 of the Q&A with Panch 2000. I hope you guys enjoy it. It's more Battlefield specific questions. Have a good one. Ta-ta.
So Craig,
Yes.
how do you think the weapon balance will be on the release of Battlefield 4? Because if you remember, Battlefield 3 when it released, it had a crap ton of overpowered weapons: the M16A3, the FAMAS, the US-12 frag rounds. So you have said before that Battlefield 3 is kind of like a beta for Battlefield 4. So how do you think the balance of the weapons will be on the release?
Alright, so Battlefield 4, I mean, obviously, yeah, they've had the time in making Battlefield 3 and going through all the patches, so they can obviously look at their history of doing the patchwork for Battlefield 3 weapons, and I'm sure there's not going to be another type of FAMAS frag rounds and things like that. Those were more sort of... What did I say? Did I say FAMA? USAS frag rounds. That was more of sort of a bug or an oversight.
Yeah,
But
I wouldn't necessarily say it's a bug. It's probably just, oversight. They thought,
yeah,
oh my god, there's an automatic shotgun. We have frag rounds that do about as much damage as a grenade launcher. We should totally put those two together.
yeah. So I'm sure that the things like that are not gonna. You're not gonna have the M26 mask glitch, and you're not gonna have the smoke underbarrel glitch. But
Well, luckily, I haven't experienced any of those because I picked the game up a couple months after its launch when they, fixed most of the bugs. So, yeah, pretty nice.
yeah, but I'm sure the balance will be a lot better. Obviously, right now, the key three weapons are the M16A3, M416, and the AEK971. Now,
Yeah.
there's always going to be, in any shooter, there's always going to be the gun that is most used because it is generally considered the most powerful. But none of those weapons are OP. They just excel really, really well in specific settings. AEK, is the best extreme close range. The M16A3 is the best close mid, and the M416 is the best mid to long range, and it still does very well at close range. So, but I'm sure that Battlefield 4 is going to have much better balance than we saw in Battlefield 3. Even though they've got tons of weapons, it's hard to balance a game when you have all these weapons, but each weapon is just slightly better in a certain category, so it'll be quote-unquote OP in that category, but that's like saying shotguns are OP in close range and sniper rifles are OP in far range. I mean, that's just the area that they excel, so...
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And this question, it really can be broken into two parts because this part is talking about the overpowered weapons and the overset weapons, and the other part which we're probably going to talk about now is the weapons when they're compared to each other. And I know that kind of sounds weird, but I'm talking about you know release day of Battlefield 3, everyone is having, their default, their faction guns. The US has their M16A3, their M4A1, and the Russians have a far less superior weapon, or a far more inferior weapon, which is the AK-74M and the AKS-74U,
Okay.
which are, they are much slower rate of fire, and they're just overall not as good a gun as the M16 and the M4.
Well, it actually does do a fairly decent job of simulating the real world counterparts. But of course, this is a game setting. So, but in that, I love the AK-74M. It actually is a great gun for that mid to long range. Yes, it's got that slower rate of fire, but same with the the L85, A2, same with the Scar L, and those are two of my favorite guns because they are just immensely accurate. Their recoil is low, and their bullet bloom per shot is low, and both of those, when combined with that low rate of fire, means these guns are pinpoint accurate at range. So you have to understand what weapon you are using and be able to adapt your playstyle to fit that gun, and you got to pick and choose your fights. If you're using...
this is release date. Not a lot of people know how to do that yet. So
well, yeah.
Yeah, but still.
Well, I mean, that's just
Battlefield 4. The release guns for the Russian is the AK-12. And, you probably know this because, you're kind of like a gun guy, I guess. But the AK-12 is the modern version of the AK-47. It fires a 7.62 millimeter cartridge, which is a bigger round than the normal NATO rounds that the M16 fires. So I think this gun is gonna perform more like the G3A3 in that it's a low rate of fire, high damage weapon as opposed to the high rate of fire like kind of medium damage weapon of the M16A3 and the M4A1.
Yeah, I mean, and that's one of the things that Battlefield's. I mean, aside from a few Battlefield titles, they've always had that where you start out with faction-specific weapons, but eventually you'll unlock each weapon for each faction, but eventually everybody starts moving into the the first weapon that you unlock that you can use for both. Well, I guess in Battlefield 4's case, whatever 3 factions you get stuck with.
Yeah, and that's actually kind of the next subtopic is the Chinese default like weapon, because I think and correct me if I'm wrong, Craig or any of the guys in the comments, but I think that the default gun for the Chinese is the QBZ 95.
Oh, okay.
I believe. And that gun, I done my fair bit of research, and that gun is actually a weird round. It's like the Chinese version of the NATO round, which means probably do the same damage as the M16A3, but the rate of fire is only 650. So,
well, that's definitely a bummer that the Chinese faction would get that. I actually haven't really even looked at what all the the order in which you unlock weapons and things like that. I'm waiting for the beta to come out to where I really see that. So, but yeah, the Chinese weapon being shooting that slow, it sucks. But again, you got to pick and choose.
I'm just talking about the real life rate of fire. I'm not really sure about the in-game rate of fire.
Ah, okay. Well, I mean, what in terms of what it will be for Battlefield 4, I have absolutely no clue.
Yeah, no, in terms of balance, like, DICE is kind of like, as you said in our before, Battlefield is like the middle ground of like something small like Call of Duty and PlanetSide, which, DICE kind of thinks a little bit of realism but they think more of balance.
Oh yeah, I mean, balance is key.
Yeah, if they can, they'll incorporate like the real life statistics. But if the real life statistics are just gonna make that gun like an underdog, then they're gonna tweak with it a little bit.
Well, I mean, Scar deals the same amount of damage per bullet as the M16, and the Scar shoots.
Yeah, but the rate of fire is so much lower.
Yeah, but the Scar is still a great gun. So yeah, that's what the thing is with Battlefield weapons. There really are no just utter horrible and complete trash guns. They just all handle slightly different.
There are some like the A70 frag rounds now.
Oh, well, that's a shotgun. I think all shotguns suck and are complete crap. I also think all sniper rifles suck and are complete crap. That's why I never use them. But in terms of the carbines, assault rifles,
I'm a shotgun and I find that offensive.
I mean, I've got videos out there of shotgun footage, but I just don't like shotguns because they're very inconsistent. The way that the suppression works on it, and I don't like.
Yeah, definitely, man. Shotguns, they're kind of that just like that weird gun that is just God in one round and just crap in another.
Yeah, I like consistency.
Shotguns are just consistency. Well,
and shotguns just aren't consistent. They also, I mean, they're very specific, and I like a gun that's that can do decent in close and far range. I mean, I'd take the FAMAS over a shotgun any day. But I also, just from my personal standpoint, I don't like anything that kills in one shot. I don't like using explosives against infantry, typically. I don't like using sniper rifles or shotguns against infantry. I like things that require follow-up. I don't want to just get that lucky first shot and then win, and I'm done. I don't really find a challenge in that, and I just don't find personal enjoyment in that. That's just on a personal level, so we can go ahead and move on after that.
Oh,
so.
I think we discussed that for long enough. So, the second question is one that you kind of touched on with your deployable weapons video, and that is, what other deployable weapons would you like to see in Battlefield 4? Like, we have the 50 cal sniper rifle, we have the grenade launcher, we have the USAS 12. So, what other deployable weapons would you like to see?
Well, in terms of what I would like to see, personally, I mean, I like to have the weapons as selectable by my kit. Again, I like consistency. These deployable weapons, they have a level of unpredictability. Someone might have picked it up, so I might go there and it's empty, it's just, so I don't know personally if I will end up using these deployable weapons a whole lot when the game comes out. I mean, if a frickin' explosive laser gun with infinite ammo drops on, yeah, I'll go for that. But, DICE is not going to, they're definitely going to allow that. So I'm going to try to stick with my more consistent loadouts because I'm going to pick the weapon that's going to be my playstyle for that round, and I'm going to use that. But as to what I would like to see, it seems like they're using some of the weapons that are, I don't know how to say unique, because I mean there are definitely other shotguns and there's other snipers. Granted, it might not be 50 cal, but I'm guessing that since they already brought it into the Battlefield series in Battlefield 3, I'm sure that the crossbow will see play as a deployable weapon. And
well, maybe not, because honestly, the crossbow is not that great of a weapon because it is technically an equipment.
Well, yeah, but I mean, I don't know what else they. I mean, there are thousands of weapons out there. I mean, heck, a frickin' what are those things? Slingshot. I mean, they could put a slingshot in there. So I mean, I'm sure DICE. There's not too many unique. I don't see a flamethrower being introduced in Battlefield. I just don't see that happening. It also won't fit the setting. But it's also just not a good weapon mechanically in most shooters. Very few shooters have done flamethrowers well, and if they're trying to slightly get back into that MLG type of setting with the whole spectator mode and things like that, having a flamethrower in the game is just going to be a setback in terms of balancing and trying to get into MLG. So you're not going to see too many OP guns. And they're going to be fairly balanced, I think. I mean, 50 cal snipers a stretch, but as long as that's not something that's offered on a lot of smaller maps, I'm sure they'll do well with picking the right deployable weapons to be on the right maps and game types.
One more question, and probably the last question considering the time limit, and which is, how do you think DICE will balance the jets and the helicopters in Battlefield 4? Because, in Battlefield 3, if you have a good chopper team, you could just dominate the enemy team. Same with jets. But if you have a terrible jet pilot or chopper team, then they're just going to get shot down immediately, and they're going to have no use whatsoever, except for giving the enemy team pretty much free kills.
If you want my just straight up honest opinions on it, I know I'm going to piss a lot of people off, but I've always I like having the Battlefield. I mean, I've always been a Battlefield player since 1942. I was even in the beta testing for that game. So I mean, I've been a Battlefield player forever. And I've loved the vehicles that are in a Battlefield game because they do add to that feeling of it being a Battlefield. But I've always hated vehicles in Battlefield games because they just don't fit my play style. I like to shoot, with bullets against infantry and whatnot, and I don't want to say cowarding, but that, in my opinion, that's kind of what it is. And for a video game setting, it feels like that. In real life, I know why people want to be behind, inches upon inches of thick armor. And, I know why you want to be flying through the air incredibly fast with only things that explode when you shoot them. I mean, all that stuff makes sense. So in a video game, it's just so hard to find that good balance. DICE are doing a really good job with Battlefield 4 in that they're bringing in that testing setting where you can go in and do the tutorial and you can just have an empty just sandbox and you can go through all the weapons and you can get in vehicles and you can get in jets and helicopters. So that'll really help to get newbie players that haven't had a chance to really practice. They'll be able to practice and not suck as much, hopefully, when they get into the actual fight. But like you said, you can get helicopter crews that are just, the two of them work really, really well together. And the second they get damaged, all they have to do is just fly off into the sunset, land, repair, and they're back in the fight. And so honestly, the biggest things that I can see towards the balance is doing what they're doing with the ammo situation, in that you don't have as much ammo. You have to wait for your reserve ammunition to resupply. That I really like how they did that. What they did with Battlefield 3 in that making it so the gunner couldn't deploy flares. That was a really, really awesome thing that they did. But I mean, jets, there's always going to be, if you give anybody the opportunity to fly that fast and be in the air, you can't really stop them from just being OP with this device. Good jet pilots are always going to be able to lock down entire teams in rush and conquest and things like that. It's just going to happen when you allow someone to fly through the air and have an infinite amount of air to ground rockets. It's just that's just what's going to happen.
Jets, they are, in my opinion, one of the hardest, if not the hardest vehicle to balance. Because, if you make them just slightly too good, then people are going to complain that they're overpowered. But if you just make them slightly, worse, then people are going to say, like, oh my god, they suck dick, and no one's going to use them. So, how are you supposed to balance that?
Yeah, I mean, that's a tricky thing, and it comes down to I've heard in some of the DICE interviews, they don't want things to be 100% balanced because there is no fun when things are 100% balanced. You need to have something that just stands out. Otherwise, it's boring. It's just it's no fun. So you do have to have a level of unbalanced. It is just the trick is finding that good unbalance. And it'll never happen because human beings, there's always going to be sucky players. There's always going to be good players. So that's how the cookie crumbles, I guess.
Oh yeah, we could spend a good couple hours discussing this, but we're gonna leave it here. Stay tuned for part 3, and as always, peace out.
All right, guys. Hope you've enjoyed it. Have a good one. Ta-ta.